brought them to a clinic where they were going to take a pregnancy test. And then while they were waiting for the results, they took the girlfriend to a single mom and the boyfriend to a single dad. The two single parents proceeded to try and turn them against each other. And they basically told them that the other was going to leave them with a kid. And one of them even admitted to resenting having a child. And that was the moment when I realized I didn't enjoy how the health class portrayed relationships to us. I realized that when they talked about relationships, they only stressed what made them unhealthy. They never really told us what actually made them healthy. So I wanted to try and take a different approach to how the health class should talk about relationships. The big question I used was, how can I make an important contribution to my school? I decided to try and provide information about healthy relationships in a positive light instead of the negative one that the health class normally chose. I decided to do a lot of research and make a brochure that I hoped Mrs. Whale would hand out to her class during the sex ed portion. The main thing I learned was that even when you're in a relationship, your individuality is still really important. A lot of people think that when you're in relationships, you're two parts of one whole, and that it's cute if you seem like the same person. So I decided to give back to the students. I took a lot of notes, 5 pages worth. My mom she's a therapist. She gave me a lot of books that I used for my research. And I also used Lacey Green. She's a YouTuber. She has a YouTube channel called Sex Plus, where she answers basically any questions on sexuality or sex or relationships. She makes a YouTube channel and she gives really good advice. Since I collected so many notes, I decided to make a booklet instead. This was what I made. Pass it around. When I showed it to Mr. Boyle, and she made a good point in saying that no one's going to read that. So her advice was to try and condense it down to 1 page front and back. And so I did that. I ended up with this. All about healthy relationships. I have types of intimacy, things about consent, how to have a fair argument instead of just a really heated argument. And I showed this to her and asked her if it was something that she would actually consider passing out to her class, and she said it was. So I think she's going to start passing this out to her class, which is really cool. I went and talked to her 4th grade class and I explained what my project was and what I was doing. And I was really happy that the students were nodding and people agreed with me. And then later after school I was at musical rehearsal and people even came up to me and told me that they really liked my idea and thought it was cool. What I learned from this experience of doing all this research on healthy relationships was that your personal development is still really important. And just because you also think of your own life and you're in a relationship does not make you a bad boyfriend or girlfriend. You do not have to put your life off to the side to focus on theirs. You can still be very independent in yourself and still care for your partner. That was my senior project.
I'm going to have you sit there for just a little bit here. Are there questions or comments for Ashley? And part of what she asked me to look at for her rubric is her ability to answer answer your questions in a comprehensive way. So I mean, you can have some comments like you liked it, that's okay too, but also dig into some questions for her as well, and we'll probably take about 3 minutes or so to have her answer some questions, okay?
What was the most challenging part of making or doing your project?
Just all of the research and trying to condense it down into like, the books I read were all like adult level books, and I had to try and write it in a way that teenagers would enjoy to read. And also, when I was taking notes and making the booklet, I wanted to include like all sexualities and people that were gender fluid and then polyamory, so I had to like not use pronouns, and only use they, and then I had to write things that include singular and plural, so I had to like do some tricky wording.
What were some of the bigger problems that you ran into?
Well, I've always I'm not a fan of the health class, and so the way I worded some things, and like poking at the health class, Mrs. Boyle did not approve of when I asked her to read through it.
Tell us more about that.
Well, in my introduction paragraph to the booklet, I was kind of slightly angry when I was writing it, and then when she read through it, like the first thing she said was, I was really offended when I read through your first page.
Is that a valid point?
Yeah, she did make valid points.
Sure. It's, that can be tricky, trying to maintain a stance of neutrality when you have a specific feeling about something, you know. I've read this weekend something that I think is kind of interesting. We spend, as human beings, right? We spend so much time worrying about doing whatever I can so I can be successful in my life, whatever I can so I can make a lot of money, perhaps, whatever I can so I can learn a lot, right? But the one thing that, and this is, generically speaking, but one thing that most of us would say is that being happy in life is important. Having a happy, healthy relationship / marriage is important. Most people, I would even venture to say all, although it's a very dangerous thing to do, most people never enter into a marriage thinking, one day I'll get divorced, Most people think that will never happen to them, right? Just like texting and driving of sorts, right? I'll never get into an accident, okay? So the research they said is, why do we spend so much time on everything else when some of the things that we think is the most important thing, like family, like healthy relationships, we spend no time and just kind of feel like, well, we'll just be in love, and love will take care of everything. You have to learn how to handle those types of relationships. You have to learn how to handle those ups and downs, because there are going to be times where that person that you said that you loved has really offended you, hurt you in some way, shape, or form. Right? This is not me calling for not divorce. You understand what I'm saying? This is me sharing with you that relationships are very complex. Even when you talked about it, it's not just man and woman, right? It's I don't know if I'm going to say this right. Fluid sexuality, is that right? Gender fluidity, and also polyamory, which, some of these ideas, especially when you're talking about sex and relationships, turns into the area of taboo subjects. Things that are not talked about make people feel very, very uncomfortable, okay? It doesn't mean that, I don't think it means we have to then just be comfortable with it. But I guess that's my comment, and I guess my question is, what do you think about that statement that we spend more time worried about ourselves personally, but we don't spend any time really working on what it means to have healthy relationships? What can you add or comment on that in some way, shape, or form?
I think that a lot of people, even if they knew that their relationship was unhealthy and wanted to fix it, a lot of people don't know how. It's not really something anyone teaches you or really talks about, is how to fix a relationship. I'm really hoping that if anyone in the school is struggling with it, hopefully it would help them with it.
Any other questions, comments?
How many booklets have you made just that one, or?
Yeah, and that's like my second copy. My first one was like twice as long as that.
Ashley, thank you so much.